Hello and welcome to another AGS Inspire Flip Masterclass. As a reminder for our current staff, but also for our new staff that have just joined us at Easter, the best way to use these videos in our Flip Masterclasses is to make sure you take notes throughout. As with any Flip Masterclass or any Flip Learning videos, you can pause, rewind and play again if there's anything you want to watch more than once or any questions you might have. And also you can revisit the sessions at a later date because all the sessions are stored on my YouTube channel, so if you want to go back in a few weeks or a few months to brush up on these ideas, then you're more than welcome to. Right, let's move on to this week's session. This week's focus is challenge, and this is something that is not just important for us as a school, but it's important for all the teachers across the country and across the world. Because as teachers, we have a duty of care to make sure we challenge every single student in our classes and not just our most able and talented. And what this session is going to do, it's going to run through lots of practical activities, tips and advice that you can use to make sure that you are challenging every single student in the class and getting the most out of your lessons, making sure that all of your students are making the progress that they should be. Okay, we're going to split it into 4 different sections, and each section has 3 different tips, so there'll be 12 altogether, practical ideas that you should be able to take some notes and then take those into your lessons over the next few days, weeks and months. So the first one is expectations, and we've done a lot of work recently on standards and really driving those expectations forward in the class, and this is really pivotal if we want to actually challenge every single student. And the first thing I want us to really think about is how can we actually create an environment where we're actually saying to students, listen, it is going to be hard, it is going to be challenging, and because of that it's fine to get things wrong. I think too many students still live in fear of getting things wrong, so some of them maybe don't try as hard because they're quite scared about what might happen if they get it wrong, so they'd rather kind of just sit back and wait for someone else to do it first, or they put their hand up and they want to ask, they want to find the answer out, and it's actually about saying, listen, it's fine, it is hard, you are going to make mistakes, and we need to remember and understand that as teachers, if our students are getting everything right all of the time in our lessons, then we're not actually challenging our students hard enough, and our expectations aren't high enough. So that's something that, from the ground upwards, we need to create that culture where everyone knows it's a safe environment, it's fine to make mistakes, and yes, it is going to be hard. Secondly, linked to that, we need to then encourage resilience, because if it's going to be hard, we need our students to be resilient, and we need them not to give up straight away. And a great tip for this is to use the 3 before me. Some of you may have heard this before, and what that's about, it's about saying, before you ask me, before you come and put your hand up, use your brain, your book, and then your buddy, the person sat next to you, before you come to the boss, which is you as the teacher. That's quite a nice visual to put on the board or to put next to your board, so it's always in the eye line of the students, and you can constantly refer to the 3 before me when students have got their hands up. And obviously this is really important because we have far too many students, not just in our school, but across the country, that have been used to when they get stuck, they put their hand up, they get the answer or they get some help from the teacher, but that's no good, because when they then sit their exam or their GCSE exams, as soon as they come to a hard question, their kind of natural reaction is to want to say, I need some help. They can't get the help, they can't do that, so what do? They just miss it out and go on to the next question. So we need to really develop that resilience from a really early age, that it is going to be hard, you are going to be resilient, you are going to give it a go. There are different methods to try and help yourself before you ask me. And third and finally on expectations is success criteria. We've done a lot of work with success criteria this academic year in terms of our gold, silver and bronze criteria that is all linked to levels or GCSE grades, and that's been fantastic. But sometimes I feel that as staff we miss the opportunity to go back and revisit those success criteria throughout the lesson, and to revisit that and to redirect students back to those success criteria to say, listen, remember you are aiming for this, or what did the A grade success criteria actually have on it? And it's all well and good putting them at the start of the lesson, but if that's the only time you're going to refer to them, they're merely a bit of a bolt on and they don't really have any impact in the lesson. And when we're watching lessons, when we're observing students and we're looking at student progress and the impact of the teacher, we really need to make sure that those success criteria are having an impact on the lesson. And if they're not and they're never referred to, then I think we need to really think that, are they actually having any impact, and is it a bit of a waste of time? So let's start referring to them, let's make sure the students know them, let's make sure the students are aiming for the right ones related to their own targets. Okay, the next section is about pace, and this for me is a real key when I'm watching lessons about how pacey is the lesson. And I'm not talking about going 100 miles an hour and not giving the students a chance to learn, but actually just stepping back from a lesson and saying, how hard are the students working, and how fast is the lesson moving along. A great way to do this is to use digital timers, and you have all got access to those from the software package that we bought at the start of the year with Triptycho. And it's about timing those and really making sure that the students know you're in control and they're not just going to finish when the students want to. And I've written a blog on this, and something I always look for in lessons is that too many times, far too many times, staff around in lessons across the country use 2 minutes. And we say, right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do this. And as adults and as people, we hear that all the time. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Just wait there for 2 minutes, or I'll come and speak to you in 2 minutes. We never mean 2 minutes, and it's never 2 minutes when we come back. So subconsciously, we know that 2 minutes could be anywhere between 30 seconds and about 5 or 10 minutes. So the students know that. And when you set a task for 2 minutes, the students know that really means we'll just finish when we're ready, not when you're ready. So don't do that. I think that if you give a task to students for 3 minutes, 3 minutes actually sounds quicker and shorter than 2 minutes, because the students know you're going to be timing it. They know it's going to be accurate. And if you've got a clock on the board that's actually counting that down, even better. So my advice would be to stay away from 2, 5 and 10 minute tasks. I think we say those far too often. Kids hear those every day, all the time, at home, in school, everywhere. Let's cut that out. Let's go for things like 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 4 minutes, 9 minutes. And suddenly, the intensity is up, because the students know you're timing them. They know it's going to be accurate. You've got your timer ticking down, and suddenly you're really challenging those students. And what you find is when you set them off on a task, if you set them off on a task that you say, right, you're going to have 2 minutes to do this, there's no urgency, there's no oomph when they suddenly start, because they know that it's just a kind of whatever time. You say you've now got 3 minutes, and watch the difference when they start. Straight away, are you ready? Go. And they're off and they're running, and they're really getting it going straight away. Secondly, do not apologise for lots of hard work. All right, we really need to be telling students that they're coming in, they will be working hard, and saying things like, listen, I'm going to make your brain hurt this lesson. It is going to be hard. We're going to do lots of hard work. I'm going to have you grafting all the time. And for me, when I'm watching lessons, I often just forget what the teacher is doing and just look at the students. And I say to myself, are those students working hard? Are they on task? And lots of times I feel that students are in their comfort zone. They're doing a bit of work, but then they'll have 30 seconds off having a bit of chat next to the person next to them, or they'll just have a little breather. And actually, how much are we stretching those kids? How hard are they working? Let's give them lots of hard work. Let's cram that lesson with lots of activities, and let's not give them any time to be off task and to be mentally truanting throughout your lesson. And lastly, on this section, extension work. If students get to the end of your planned activities, you may have planned some extension work for them. But extension work, people too easily fall down by giving students more of the same. That's not extension work. If you give students more of the same as an extension task, all you're doing is just occupying them. So it's really just an occupying task. An extension task is to move them to the next level and to go again. So if you are planning extension tasks, make sure it's not more of the same, and it's something that takes that student to the next level. Okay, next is excellence. And this links to a session that we've already done in AGS Inspire a few months ago from the work of Ron Berger and his book An Ethic of Excellence. And we talked about the work he'd done with critique and redrafting. And the first thing we need to make sure is, with this whole ethos, is that we need to, as staff, refuse to accept substandard work and make it very clear. And I know I spoke in front of a set of kids at the start of the year, and I told our students that we were, as teachers, not going to accept substandard work. We were going to give it back. And it's not just about handing anything in and just meeting a deadline and saying, well, look, you've got it, it's done, you can't tell me off. We need to make sure that we're demanding excellence from everyone. And we're quite open with students about that, and making sure that they understand that they need to do their very, very best, and they shouldn't be handing in anything less than their very best. Next, I mentioned this a few seconds ago about redrafting and critique, and that very kind of ethos that Ron Berger sets out in his book An Ethic of Excellence. And it's about the fact that if you were given as a teacher a really difficult task to do or a report to write, how many times would you literally hand in to the head or to your manager or whoever it may be, if in a role before teaching, your first draft and your first effort? You would probably have always saved it a few nights before and then looked through it again and changed it and tweaked it. I know I always do that with anything I write, whether it's a presentation like this, whether it's a report. No matter what it is, it's kind of redrafted and I tweaked, and I take a few hours and I'll come back to it and I'll let it sink in and I'll do something again. And it's about making sure that it's the very, very best. And then once that's happened, it's for students to be critiquing each other's work and giving them ideas, giving them answers, taking advice, and also to be seeing excellence around them and to get ideas for their own work. If that's really interesting and you want to know more about that, if you want to look at my YouTube channel and go back to the session, the video we did on critique, there's a whole host of ideas of how you can actually implement that in your classroom. And thirdly, along with that, then using examples of excellent work to inspire students. So having past examples and using that as a benchmark of excellence and saying this is what I'm looking for, and putting it on the board or putting it on tables and getting students to actually see what you mean. And I always go back to the idea that if you buy some furniture, let's say you buy a flat pack furniture from somewhere like IKEA, the chances are what you'll do before you look at the instructions, you'll look at the picture on the box because you want to see what it looks like. You want to see what that table or that desk or that dining room table is actually going to look like before you start even unpacking it, because you need to see in your mind what the standard is. What does it look like? What am I aiming for? And if we don't give that to students, then we really can't complain when they're handing in things that aren't at the level that we expect. And the fourth section is questioning. Again, we've done a lot of work on questioning. We did an AGS Inspire session on this, so you can then go back and revisit this session if you would like to. But in terms of building on our work of questioning, I want you to think about being the awkward interviewer. And actually, when you're asking questions to students, don't accept their first answer. Really probe them and really challenge them in your questioning. Things like, well, what do you mean? Or, can you give me an example of that? Or, go on, keep going. And rather than just accepting that first answer, really probe, and be that awkward interviewer. Be the interviewer that's been interviewing the politicians lately, and really give them a hard time, and really get them to really delve into their deep thoughts, and to really think about constructing a fantastic answer rather than just giving you a 1 or 2 word answer. We also talked about wait time and making sure that we give our students time to really think deeply in lessons, and we can obviously use our aspects of learning and our deep thinking icon for this. And when I did the questioning session, if you can remember, I said that the research suggests that the average wait time that teachers give students in class before answering a question is less than 1 second. I think that's absolutely ludicrous when we think about it. If we want a really difficult question answering and we're prepared to take an answer after less than 1 second, how is that ever going to be the best answer that student can give? It's the first thing on their mind. It hasn't been thought about. It hasn't been deconstructed or time to think about articulating an answer. So we need to make sure we give the students some time to think. And I don't mean 2, 3, 4 minutes, but just giving kids those 4 or 5 seconds and saying to students, right, there's going to be some wait time. I want you all to think deeply. And then if you're going to hot seat, like we've talked about before, you will choose who you're going to throw the question open to. So that whole idea of no hands up, you'll go round. You'll bounce the questions round. You'll use the A, B, C of can you add to that, or can you build on that, or do you want to challenge that? And after you've given that wait time and that deep thinking, you should normally find that A, the students think that this must be a really important question if we're getting wait time here, and B, you should start to get a far more structured and articulate answer off the students. And thirdly, a general real expectation of the quality of answers that we should be expecting. And actually saying to students, no, I'm not accepting that. Come on, I want you to build on it. I want you to add to that. That's only a D grade answer. Come on, I know your target's a B grade or an A grade. I want you to, give me more detail, or what do you mean by that? Or, I've asked you to analyse. You've only really just given me a list, or you've only outlined it. And again, really, delving and probing and challenging our students to give us the very, very best, and not accepting, weaker, answers that would only really give them, a lower grade than what their target grade is. So with that as well, you need to have that real knowledge of all of your students and their target grades, and making sure that you're using the success criteria like we talked about to really make sure that that's not, you're aiming for the A grade. I know you are. That's not an A grade answer. Tell me, and if need be, bounce it to someone else first. Who can add to that? Who can build on that and make it an A grade answer? And it's about really, not accepting anything less than excellence. Okay, in preparation for the session on Tuesday, what I would like you to do is, with that in mind, is to bring your notes with you. Anything you've taken tonight, because we're going to obviously, like we do with our sessions, we're going to fire it around with some questions, and I want people's ideas and their experiences of things that have worked and things that haven't worked, and I want everyone to learn from each other within the session. I'd like to bring a previously used lesson plan, any lesson plan at all. I don't want you to make one. I don't want you to think about, oh, he's going to look at it. It's not for me to look at. It's for you to look at in terms of challenge, what we might be able to do better, what we might be able to do differently, and maybe work with a partner on your table with that. So any lesson plan at all that you've used over the last few weeks, few months, few years, and also thoughts on an upcoming lesson that you're about to teach this week coming up. Nothing more. I don't mind if you haven't planned it at all, but just what the content's going to be, what the year group's going to be, and so you've got in your mind a lesson fixed that we're going to kind of hopefully do some work within the session to really make sure we have the challenge in that lesson that we need to take it forward. Okay, thank you very much indeed, and I will see you at the session on Tuesday.